I want to first thank you guys for having me out tonight. Again, I'm Raleigh Felton. You can find me on Twitter, Raleigh Felton, and Dribble, Raleigh Felton as well. Why a process and what we should do? We should believe in the process. Again, I've been doing this for about 15 years. And with that, I can tell you at every kickoff meeting, whether it be a client or a personal meeting, I always look at the project brief and I go, how am I going to solve this problem? I have no idea how I'm going to approach it. And with that, even though I can give confidence to a client knowing that through this process, we will get through there, and it always works out, and it always works out fine, and it always turns out good. So believing in a process, even though it's forever changing, is a good place to start. And again, every project's different, every client's different, every team's different, so there are no hard and fast rules to it. It's only a roadmap, just something to go by. This process that I'm going to show you tonight, sometimes we use it, all of it, sometimes we don't. So it really depends on how the project's going, how we think about things, and yeah. So we start with research and assessment. Basically, once we get a project brief, we do our research, we read it, we think about it, we figure out what the client has. Some clients have full-on brand identity, they have photography, they have their topography set. Some clients come to us, they have nothing. They just have an idea, they have a business plan. So it's our opportunity to actually create something for them. So a lot of this goes into finding out what their assets are, and then also doing like competitive analysis of their clients' competitors, doing a lot of research on the web of what their users are, who their users are. And again, a lot of this is tied in with UX. So some of this stuff is off of our shoulders from like gathering it, but we still have to read it, understand it, and make sure we're all aligned with the UX team. We send out a questionnaire. These are just some sample questions, but we have about 20, 25 questions that we send out to clients just to get their read on things, and again, just trying to start thinking about research. These are just example ones. A couple that I really like, what do your users watch? What do they read? What do they browse? And it is very important. So depending on, they could be an insurance company, but if their users are looking at different websites or whatever, some of that can help bring the visual appeal to their users. And then again, how do you measure success? I think this is an important one, because you never know what a client's expectation is, or even yourself. Like, what does success look like? So knowing that right off the bat will help start getting in your mind what visual approach that you want to take. And then this bottom one, if you could communicate a single message about your company, what would it be? I like this one because it's about communicating a single message. And for a visual language, like as if we can simplify it and get the client starting to think about how they can simplify their message, this is big, because nobody ever reads stuff on the web. So if we can get them going on that. And then that leads right into think about content. What are we trying to solve? There's plenty of times that clients come to us, or just maybe I have a personal project. If you don't think about content, we can always make something that looks beautiful. We can always make something that looks awesome. But if we don't have the content, I can guarantee you that if we do have the content, it's going to turn out twice as good as without content. If not, might as well go back to the UX part and have like a gray box and say, hey, once you have content, then we can actually start creating stuff. But a lot of times, content's just not there, and they have to wait. Clients have to wait on somebody, so there's a lot of designing and recommending stuff. So, hey, put a headline here, and try 2 sentences or whatever, and then that always adjusts, and we always have to adjust after. So thinking about content up front is, I think, a big key, and really pushing for that really helps. I think this is a great quote by Jeffrey Zeldman. Content precedes design. Design in the absence of content is not design, it's decoration. I don't think I need to say any more. Sometimes we like to start by answering these in writing. Again, this is all part of the process to get your mind thinking about visual design. So what I like to do is just sit down, write out a paragraph or maybe even a line. Some of these, sometimes they can't be answered, but just starting to think about it. And I can guarantee you, if you look at the beginning of a project and look at the end, these questions, they're not going to be very tied together, but it at least helps the process. So then from there, we're still trying to get inspiration. And I think a lot of you guys are coming from print, so you probably have done a lot of this stuff. But mood boards, one thing that we love to do is actually we start making mood boards with sites that we like. Where do we get these inspirations? You can get them from anywhere, really. But the places that I like to get my stuff from is Dribbble, obviously, the designer. It's a designer community. A lot of great work on there. One hesitation with Dribbble, and I'm completely guilty of this, is that there's a lot of good designs on Dribbble, and everybody copies everybody. So, that's like I said, I'm guilty of it, but it's a lot of different things that you have to be careful of, like looking at too much stuff. But I think it's a great resource for inspiration. Obviously, Pinterest. One thing that we like to do, if we have 2 or 3 designers working on a project, we actually create a private board for a client, and then we share that. And then so as people start pinning stuff, it goes in and you can start seeing it. And then from there, we can actually comment. You can make your comments when you pin on it. Pinterest in itself is pretty much a mood board. So, and then design inspiration. Again, a great resource that you can get anything from photography to print design to web design. But pulling these things down, being able to talk about them with the team, it really helps get your juices flowing. So what does it look like? This is a mood board that we did for the actual car company. Again, just kind of pulling. We knew we were going to have some infographics, so we started pulling some things that we liked. We knew we were going to have call-outs on the vehicle, so we started pulling out different call-outs that we liked that we could talk about. And then when we present to the actual client, we pull a couple of examples and talk about why we like them. And then, it's all, this is one of our presentations, so, we just talk about different things that we like, get an understanding for why we actually pulled those images, and again, internally it helps all of us get our head and mind wrapped around where we want to be. Another thing is style tile, and this is kind of the overall style of your website. What we start doing with style tiles, we start pulling typography, we start pulling color palette, we start pulling design elements, we start designing buttons. If we know that the site has a form or a drop down, we start designing those, and then we also pull from iconography and photography. So typography, one thing to know that on the web, you can't just put any font up there. There's a lot of information out there on the web that I'm not going to go into because people can explain it a lot better than I can. But there is a difference between regular fonts and web fonts, and so you need to be aware that you can't just pull any font that you want. But there's multiple resources, but these are the ones we like to pull from. Fonts.com, Google Fonts, they have a library of open fonts, open source fonts that you can use for free. Typekit, that's Adobe. If you have an Adobe Cloud account, you can check the fonts there and load them into your computer and use those. And then Font Swirl, they have a lot of great free fonts. Then from there, we start pulling color palettes. One thing, again, I'll always try to separate and give clients ownable work. So if people don't have a brand, if a client comes to us and they only have an idea, we look at their competitors and we start saying, how do we make them ownable? How do we make their brand ownable? How do we make their website ownable? And one of those things is color, and color is one of the most important things. So a lot of research on trying to think about how you pull a color palette. So, if you had a social media site or a client that said, I want a social media site, I would highly recommend staying away from blue, right? Blues are owned by Facebook. They're owned by Twitter and Foursquare. They're LinkedIn. Everything's blue. So why would you give blue? Like, try to give something that makes it a unique experience for their consumers or their users. And Two Spaces, again, Dribble's got a bunch of, they got their whole section of color, which you can start seeing how people use colors. There's a lot of great stuff there that allows you to pull different colors and different color palettes. And then Adobe Cooler, there's a great website which people make their own. You can make your own color palettes, and then you can also just download it from there and load it into either Illustrator or Photoshop. So great place to start pulling palettes from, color palettes. And then the design elements. This is an example of just some design elements that we usually pull. So we'll check with the UX designer, figure out what's going to be on screen. So if we know we're going to have buttons, if we know we're going to have drop downs, we know we're going to have a modal, we start designing that stuff. And with that, we also do a regular state and then a rollover state for buttons. If it's a radial button, we do a static item, a hover, and then a check. And again, even though this might look totally different when you put it on the website, it allows you to start thinking about different components without having it all combined together. So I think it's a great place to start. Iconography. Another thing, depending on what your client has. Some clients, they only have a certain amount of money. They don't have a big budget for photography. And so they might say, well, just, go, I can send you photos that my cousin took, or we work with a lot of startups, so that's like actuality. And, or let's just go, you can go on and do stock. Well, I'm really against stock photography, so I'd rather you actually do something more illustrative or iconography for that. And the way I approach icons are, this is a set of icons that I did for an actual insurance company, and instead of just giving them something very normal and plain, I tried to give it personality. So there are times that it calls for plain, simple. Like when you're using it in navigation, you don't want to get too cute with everything, but this was more for like branding and visual style for them. So for example, the SUV, instead of it just being an SUV for car insurance, I added a surfboard on top and also added a bike for the house. Instead of bringing it, a 2D, I kind of gave it a 3D feel and put some bushes up front and with the window. Just one little thing to kind of give it a little personality. Those little details really stick out in design. And again, kind of for life insurance, put rainy days and sunny days, and then overall, I took a step back and it was about being covered, and so we put this sparkle dust on top of everything to just really give it some personality. So again, once you start taking icons, how do you take it to the next level? How do you put those little details in that are going to make the difference? And what I like to say about like details are that people can't tell you why they like things. People can just say, "Wow, that looks good. That looks great," and they can't tell why, and that's the details. Also, the Noun Project, that's, if you don't know about it, it's a great place. If you're ever looking for icons, you can go on there, type in a noun, and it serves up icons. So it's a great place to start thinking, life insurance brings up a lot of different things, but, so it's a great place to start. Photography. Again, photography is a great way to tell a story. So if you're at least thinking about it, you pull together a mood board for photography as well. This is a mood board that I did for a wine startup. And again, what was the messaging and what was the story I was trying to tell? Everything, for the most part, is shot from first perspective, and it's these real moments of time with this guy. He's having a shot of alcohol with a beer in his hand, and he's squeezing lime on steak. These different places that you've actually seen in your lifetime before. So again, just setting the mood for that. Photography is one of the hardest things because photography costs money, right? Luckily for us, we have a photographer in-house, and we can go shoot things that we want. But again, it should always be aspirational, and you should always tell your clients, this is the type of photography that you need. Going and getting a stock image is not going to do anything for you. So if nothing else, putting that out there, I think it's a great idea. Two places that I love to get photography: Tumblr. There's so many great photography blogs. If you just start following photography blogs, then when you see great things, you know where to go, or you can start pulling stuff. Also, unsplash.com. It's a non-stock. It's actual real photographer, and he posts 10 photos every week that you can use for commercial or personal use, all free. So it's a great place. Problem with Unsplash, the designer community eats everything up from there, so you see it all over the place. So style frames, this is this is what an end style frame is, and this is a place that this girl came up with the style tiles, and it really just caught on. It was a few years back, and we like it because it just helps set the tone for everything. This was for a website. So you can start putting headlines in there, subheads, and body copy, and then you can start seeing and playing with these different elements that are going to be on the website. So we knew there was going to be infographics. So hey, when we have this data, how do we want to present it? We knew there was going to be some video. How do we actually set the video style up for that? And then you put the color palette. So again, it doesn't feel like a website, but it gives you an overall picture of everything. Again, hey, if we want to do icons, this is the way the icons should be. They should all be consistent. So this is the reason why we did it. And same with design elements. For the most part, and I'd be lying if I didn't say sometimes I jumped right into design, because sometimes you just know a client, and this stuff they're not going to get. They want to see something. But for the most part, if the client has the time and money, this is the correct way of dealing with exploration. And all this stuff leading up to actually when you open up whatever program you're going to do to design something. These are where mistakes and where things are like, oh, I don't like that color palette. I can see it all together. Or, oh, I don't like the way that video looks or the way the text feels on that. These are the places where you run into mistakes or you run into things that clients aren't liking. So you're not going back, you've designed 2 pages and then you have to, change everything up. That's in a perfect world too.